I spent $30,000 on my daughter's wedding. They made me watch it from a coat closet. So I made one phone call and cancelled everything they hadn't paid for yet. Subscribe if this story resonates with you, and tell me where in the world are you watching from. Let me back up and tell you how I got here. My name is Linda, and I'm 52 years old. I've been a single mother since Sarah was 2, when her father decided family life wasn't for him. 24 years of double shifts at the hospital. 24 years of saying yes to everything she needed and no to everything I wanted. When Sarah got engaged to James 8 months ago, I was thrilled. Someone would finally love her the way she deserved. James seemed nice enough, quiet, respectful. But he came with baggage. His mother, Victoria. Victoria Williams was everything I wasn't. Polished, confident, wealthy. She had opinions about everything and the social connections to make those opinions matter. Within weeks of the engagement, she had inserted herself into every aspect of the wedding planning. At first, I was grateful. Victoria seemed to know all the right vendors, all the best venues. She had taste, experience, and offered to coordinate everything. What I didn't realize was that help meant control, and control meant erasure. The first red flag should have been the venue change. Sarah and I had toured a simple community centre with reasonable rates. Then Victoria called. She had found something much better. A restored barn with chandeliers, featured in wedding magazines. The price was 4 times higher, but Victoria assured me it would be worth it. I'll invest in Sarah's happiness, I told myself, working extra shifts to cover the difference. Then came the dress. We had planned to find something beautiful but reasonable. But Victoria had already made appointments at the most expensive boutiques in town. When Sarah fell in love with a $3,000 gown, Victoria squeezed my hand and whispered, "You only get married once, Linda. Make it magical for her." So I did. Again and again. The flowers went from simple arrangements to elaborate installations. The photographer upgraded from basic coverage to premium packages. The catering expanded from plated dinners to full cocktail hours with premium bar service. Every upgrade came with the same gentle pressure from Victoria and the same pleading eyes from Sarah. "I want this to be perfect, Mom. You understand, right?" I understood that my retirement fund was shrinking. I understood that my savings account was emptying. But I also understood that this was my daughter's dream, and dreams don't come with payment plans. What I didn't understand was that I was funding my own exclusion. The rehearsal dinner was the first time I felt truly unwelcome. Victoria had booked a private dining room at the most expensive restaurant in town. When I arrived, I was seated at the far end of the table, next to James's great-aunt who spoke no English, and his college roommate's girlfriend, who spent the entire evening on her phone. Victoria sat next to Sarah, whispering and laughing, looking for all the world like the mother of the bride. She stood up to give a toast about welcoming Sarah into their family, about how blessed they felt to gain such a wonderful daughter. She spoke about sacrifice and love and the ways families grow and change. She never once mentioned me. When it came time for me to speak, Victoria glanced at her watch and mentioned how late it was getting, how the bride needed her beauty sleep. The moment passed, and my voice went unheard. The morning of the wedding, I woke up in my hotel room with a knot in my stomach. I had spent 3 hours at the salon getting my hair styled in soft waves. I had chosen my dress carefully. Dusty rose chiffon that Sarah had once said brought out my eyes. I felt beautiful, ready to celebrate my daughter's happiness, ready to finally be acknowledged for everything I had sacrificed to make this day possible. The first sign something was wrong came when I arrived at the venue for photos. The photographer was already there, snapping pictures of Sarah in her dress, Victoria adjusting her veil, the bridesmaids laughing and posing. I stood in the doorway for several minutes, waiting to be included, before Victoria noticed me. "Linda, honey," she said, with that bright smile that never quite reached her eyes. "We're just finishing up the intimate family shots. Why don't you wait in the lobby? We'll call you when we need you." I waited in the lobby for 45 minutes. They never called. When I finally went looking for them, I found Sarah in the bridal suite, surrounded by Victoria, her daughter, and the bridesmaids. They were all laughing about something. "Mum," Sarah said when she saw me, and for a moment I thought she was going to invite me in. Instead, she glanced at Victoria. "We're just about ready to head down for the ceremony. Victoria's been helping me with some last-minute details." Last-minute details that apparently didn't require the woman who had paid for every flower, every candle, every piece of ribbon in the building. That's when Victoria made her announcement. "Linda, honey," she said, placing her hand on my arm like she was delivering medical news. "I need to talk to you about the ceremony seating." My heart started pounding before she even finished the sentence. "The thing is," she continued, her voice dripping with false sympathy, "we've had to make some adjustments. The photographer needs clear sight lines for the official family photos, and the videographer has very specific requirements. We need to seat you somewhere that won't interfere with the visual flow of the ceremony." "And where exactly is that?" I asked, though I was already dreading the answer. "There's a lovely spot in the back hallway," she said, "by the coat closet. You'll have a perfect view through the door, and you won't be in anyone's way." A coat closet at my daughter's wedding. The wedding I had funded with money I didn't have. Working jobs that left me exhausted, making sacrifices that had become as natural as breathing. I looked at Sarah, waiting for her to object, to stand up for me, to say that her mother belonged in the front row no matter what the photographer preferred. But Sarah was adjusting her bouquet, not meeting my eyes. "That sounds perfect," she said quietly. "Thanks for handling this, Victoria." Perfect. My exclusion from my daughter's wedding was perfect. So I smiled, nodded, and walked to the back of the venue where a folding chair waited between hanging coats and forgotten umbrellas. The closet smelled like mothballs and old perfume. From my seat, I could see a sliver of the altar through the crack in the door. That's where I was when my daughter walked down the aisle in the dress I bought, carrying flowers I paid for, to marry a man whose family had erased me so completely that I might as well not have existed. Through that crack in the door, I watched everything I had dreamed of seeing from the front row. Victoria walked Sarah down the aisle because, as she had explained to everyone, it would be more meaningful since James had lost his father. The fact that Sarah's father had abandoned us both when she was a toddler was apparently irrelevant. The minister spoke about family, about bonds that can't be broken, about the love that creates and sustains us. I pressed my hand to my mouth to keep from laughing hysterically or crying. I couldn't tell which impulse was stronger. The ceremony was beautiful. I had made sure of that. Every detail had been planned and funded by me, from the ivory roses on the altar to the string quartet that played Sarah's favorite song. But sitting in that closet, watching through a crack like an unwelcome stranger, everything felt hollow. The wedding program was slipped under the closet door during the ceremony. Elegant script on expensive cardstock listed everyone involved in making the day special. Victoria Williams, mother of the groom. Sarah Peterson Williams, daughter of the heart. James Williams, beloved son. My name appeared nowhere. 24 years of motherhood, erased as completely as if I had never existed. The reception was worse. Victoria had personally arranged the seating chart. She announced proudly to anyone who would listen. My seat was at table 12, in the back corner, next to the service station where waiters scraped plates and refilled water glasses. Sarah's table was front and center under the chandelier I had specifically requested. She sat between James and Victoria, who kept leaning over to whisper things that made Sarah laugh. That laugh used to be mine. But it was during the toasts that I finally understood how complete my erasure had been. Victoria stood up first, tapping her champagne glass with a silver spoon. The room quieted instantly as she basked in the attention. She spoke beautifully about welcoming Sarah into their family, about how blessed they felt to gain such a wonderful daughter. Her voice caught with emotion as she described watching Sarah and James fall in love, as if she had been there for their entire relationship instead of just the last 8 months. The applause was thunderous. People were wiping their eyes. And I sat there, invisible, clapping politely like a stranger celebrating someone else's joy. That's when my phone buzzed with the first banking alert. $847 at Romano's restaurant. The rehearsal dinner I hadn't been allowed to enjoy, charged to the emergency credit card I had given Sarah for wedding expenses. I scrolled through more notifications, each one hitting like a physical blow. $1,200 at Paradise Spa for the bridal party's relaxation day. $350 for luxury transportation to the bachelor party. $675 for tomorrow's post-wedding brunch setup. All charged to my card. All for events I hadn't been invited to. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that for a moment I couldn't breathe. They hadn't just excluded me from Sarah's wedding. They had used my money to fund my own humiliation. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in that stiff hotel bed, still wearing my dusty rose dress, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazily overhead. The sound of celebration continued down the hall, the after-party I hadn't been invited to. So I did what I always do when I can't sleep. I organized. I pulled out my tablet and opened the folder labeled Sarah's Wedding. 18 months of planning, saved emails, receipt confirmations, payment schedules. What I found buried in those email chains destroyed whatever maternal illusions I had left. A conversation between Sarah and Victoria from 2 months earlier. Victoria: I think it's best if we handle the family dynamics carefully. Linda means well, but she can be overwhelming. We want Sarah's day to be elegant and refined. Sarah: I know exactly what you mean. She's been so involved in everything. Maybe too involved? I just want things to feel natural and sophisticated, you know? Victoria: Exactly. Let me handle the delicate conversations. We'll make sure everyone has a place, but some places are more appropriate than others. Sarah: That sounds perfect. Thank you for understanding. Handle this. Handle me. Like I was a problem to be solved rather than a person to be honored. But there was more. Another thread from just weeks before the wedding. Victoria: I've finalized the seating chart. Linda will be positioned where she won't interfere with the photography or reception flow, somewhere quiet and out of the way. Sarah: Are you sure she won't cause a scene? You know how she can get emotional about things. Victoria: Trust me, darling. I know exactly how to handle women like Linda. She'll complain privately, but won't risk ruining your special day. She's invested too much money to walk away now. Sarah: God, you're probably right. She'd never forgive herself if she ruined this for me. Victoria: Exactly. Women like your mother live to sacrifice themselves for their children. It makes them feel important. We're actually doing her a favor. The cruelty of it took my breath away. They had studied me, analyzed my weaknesses, planned my humiliation with military precision. They knew I would accept any treatment rather than risk spoiling Sarah's day. In my purse, I found something I had been carrying for months. A letter from my mother, written just before she died 5 years ago. The envelope was soft from handling, the paper inside filled with my mother's careful handwriting. My dearest Linda, if you're reading this, I hope it's because you've found the courage to speak your truth. I know how hard it's been, raising Sarah alone after David left. I watched you work those double shifts, coming home exhausted, but still finding energy for bedtime stories. I admired your devotion, but I also worried. I worried about what would happen when she no longer needed you to disappear for her comfort. I worried that you were teaching her to see your love as endless and unquestioning, without expecting basic respect in return. Remember this: love given freely should never require you to vanish. A daughter who can't see your worth isn't ready to be a woman yet, and that's not your failure. That's hers. You raised a beautiful girl, but you are also a beautiful woman who deserves to be seen and appreciated. Don't let anyone, not even her, convince you that your love isn't enough exactly as it is. It's not too late to reclaim your light, my darling. It's never too late to demand respect, to take up space, to choose yourself when choosing others stops serving your soul. Stand tall. You earned your place at every table through years of love and sacrifice. If someone can't see that, they don't deserve a seat at yours. All my love, Mom. I pressed the letter to my chest and cried for the first time since the engagement announcement. Deep, wrenching sobs that shook my whole body. I grieved not just for what I had lost tonight, but for what I had never really had, a daughter who saw me as more than a means to an end. The crying stopped as suddenly as it had started, leaving something clearer and harder than grief. I folded the letter carefully and felt, for the first time in months, like my mother's daughter again, strong enough to choose myself. Sunday morning, I woke up different, not broken, not defeated, clarified. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I started with Romano's restaurant, where the post-wedding brunch was scheduled in 3 hours. Hello, this is Linda Peterson. I need to cancel the brunch reservation for the Williams party today. Yes, I understand there's a cancellation fee. Also, please reverse the unauthorized charges made to my card yesterday. The manager was apologetic and professional. Of course, Mrs. Peterson. We'll process the reversal immediately. Is there anything else we can help with today? Actually, yes. I'd like to make a reservation for one at noon today. Your best table by the window, please. I'd like to try that salmon Benedict I've heard so much about, and maybe a glass of your finest champagne. I'm celebrating. What are you celebrating? My independence. The second call was to the Grand Resort, where Sarah and James were honeymooning in the Ocean View suite I had unknowingly upgraded them to. Hi, this is Linda Peterson, regarding the Williams honeymoon suite upgrade charged to my card yesterday without authorization. I need that reversed immediately. But Ma'am, their original card was declined yesterday. That's why we used yours. Then they can figure out new accommodations. Remove my card information from their file entirely. The third call was to the florist. Sarah and James were supposed to receive weekly flower arrangements for their first month of marriage. This is Linda Peterson. I need to cancel the weekly flower delivery to the Williams residence immediately. But, Mrs. Peterson, we've already prepared this week's arrangement. Then donate them to a nursing home. Somewhere they'll be appreciated by people who understand the value of generosity. 3 phone calls. 24 years of motherhood ended in 15 minutes. I opened my laptop and composed an email to Victoria. Victoria, I hope you enjoyed Sarah's wedding celebration. As I review the expenses from yesterday's events, I've noticed several unauthorized charges to my accounts totaling nearly $4,000. I've already begun reversing these transactions and removing my payment information from all vendors. Going forward, please understand that any expenses related to Sarah and James's marriage should be handled directly by them or by you, as their chosen family. My role as financial sponsor has concluded. I wish them both happiness in their new life, funded by their own resources. Best regards, Linda Peterson. I sent it before I could second guess myself. The phone calls started around noon. Sarah first, panicked and confused. Mum, what's happening? The flowers aren't here for the brunch, and the hotel says there's a problem with our room. People are asking questions. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call, and another. By evening, there were 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Victoria left the angriest message. Linda, I don't know what kind of game you think you're playing, but you're embarrassing yourself and hurting Sarah. This is childish behavior. Childish. The woman who had orchestrated my humiliation was calling me childish for refusing to fund it. I posted on Facebook that evening, to my friends and family. Yesterday, I watched my daughter Sarah get married in a beautiful ceremony that I was privileged to help make possible. As Sarah begins this new chapter with James and his wonderful family, I'm beginning a new chapter too. For the first time in 24 years, I'm putting myself first. I'm excited to discover who Linda Peterson is when she's not defined solely by being someone's mother. Thank you for your love and support. Here's to new adventures. I posted it with a photo of myself at my dining room table, surrounded by my grandmother's china that I had finally unwrapped. I looked peaceful, elegant, proud. I looked like someone who knew her worth. 3 weeks later, Sarah knocked on my door. She looked different, thinner, tired. The golden glow from the wedding photos had faded. Can we talk? She asked. We sat across from each other in my living room, where my grandmother's china was now displayed prominently. You're using great-grandma's dishes? Every day, I said simply. They're too beautiful to save for occasions that never come. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. I've been thinking about what happened, about the wedding, about how you were treated. Victoria said you were upset about the seating, but it feels like more than that. Do you know where I sat during your wedding? I asked. She flushed deep red. I know it wasn't ideal, but do you know where? She looked at her hands. In the back. In a coat closet, watching through a crack in the door while your new mother-in-law took my place in every family photo, every important moment, every memory you'll have of that day. Her face crumpled. I didn't think it would matter that much. Victoria said it was just logistics, that you'd understand because you're so generous. Victoria charged nearly $4,000 to my credit card without asking, for parties I wasn't invited to. Sarah's eyes went wide with genuine shock. I didn't know about that. I swear, Mom, I didn't know she was using your card. But you did know I wasn't invited to your rehearsal dinner. You did know I wasn't included in the bridal party activities. You did know that when people talked about your family, nobody mentioned the woman who raised you. The tears started flowing freely. I didn't think about how it would feel. I was so focused on having this perfect wedding that I forgot you were a person with feelings, not just someone who fixes problems and pays bills. What can I do? She asked finally. How do I make this right? You can start by seeing me, I said. Not as the woman who pays for things, but as Linda Peterson, as someone with feelings and dignity who deserves basic respect. She nodded through her tears. I'm sorry, Mum. I love you, and I made you invisible, and I hate myself for that. It was the first real apology I had heard from her. Not an explanation or justification, but actual accountability. I know you love me, Sarah, but love without respect isn't enough anymore. What do I do now? She whispered. You learn, you grow, you figure out how to be my daughter while also being your own person, and you accept that some things can't be undone. I'll never have the memory of dancing at your wedding or being in your photos. Those moments are gone forever. Will you give me the chance to try? She asked. It was a start. Not forgiveness. That would take time and consistent changed behavior. But acknowledgement that repair was possible if she was willing to do the work. We'll see, I said. And for the first time in months, that uncertainty felt like enough space for both of us to breathe. 6 months later, my life looked completely different. I was hosting a dinner party in my backyard on a Saturday evening, using all my good china, cooking elaborate meals because I enjoyed it. Sarah was there, having slowly earned her way back through consistent effort and genuine change. She brought sunflowers, my favorite, not hers, and thanked me for including her instead of expecting it as her right. The other guests were my book club friends, my photography class companions, neighbours I had gotten to know when I stopped managing other people's crises full time. As the sun set and the solar lights came on, I realized something fundamental had shifted. I was no longer anyone's satellite. I was my own planet, with my own light, my own gravitational pull. Sarah had learned to see me as a person instead of just her mother. She asked about my day, included me in conversations about her life, consulted me before making decisions that affected me. It wasn't the relationship we used to have, where I was endlessly available and she was endlessly entitled. It was better. It was built on mutual respect. The wedding photos arrived in my mailbox 8 months later. Professional, beautiful, expensive. Victoria had made sure I wasn't in a single one. But I had new pictures now. From my dinner parties, my book clubs, my weekend adventures with friends who chose to spend time with me. Pictures where I was centered, smiling, surrounded by people who valued my presence. Some people said I was too harsh, that mothers should sacrifice everything for their children's happiness. But I learned something important that day in the coat closet. You can't love someone properly until you love yourself enough to demand better. The woman who watched her daughter's wedding through a crack in a door was someone I barely recognize now. She was so afraid of being called selfish that she forgot she was a person worthy of consideration. When I look in the mirror now, I see someone who learned that it's never too late to choose yourself. Someone who discovered that people who truly love you will respect your boundaries, not punish you for having them. And finally, after decades of being everyone else's supporting character, I'm the main character in my own life. Thanks for listening to my story. Don't forget to subscribe and remember, you always deserve a seat at your own table. And if someone tries to put you in the coat closet, you have every right to walk out and build your own celebration. Your voice matters. Your presence matters. You matter.